All right, welcome back to the Best of LKN Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Hamm, and today we're talking about real estate investing. Joining me is Greg Lafferty. He's the founder of Branch Wealth Partners.
Easy for you to say.
Greg, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Great to have you. And also joining me is Christina Wright. Christina, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent to have you. So glad that we connected. And remind me before the end of this conversation, I definitely want to give a shout out to the individual who did introduce us. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join the podcast. Greg, before we dive into the work that you and your team do at Branch Wealth Partners, share for the listeners a little bit of your background.
Sure.
And then we'll kind of dive into the inspiration behind this company.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. Here again, I appreciate the opportunity. And Christina, she has her tagline. She's a professional friend finder. So, she's real good at that kind of stuff. And so appreciate the opportunity. But yeah, so I'll try to keep this brief because I know we're limited on time. So I won't open up my autobiography here, go through things. But no, actually, I have a background in aerospace engineering. I joke that I'm a rocket scientist because I did work for NASA and GE Aircraft Engines and Orbital Sciences, a couple other companies like that. But along the way through that little career, I got bored. And, it's hard to think about launching a space shuttle and getting bored. But, I'm a pretty active guy. And you get off work at 3 or 3:30. It's on Cocoa Beach. You either get, in trouble or get productive as a mid-20s male, right? And so I said, well, I'm just going to get productive. And so I started investing in real estate. And there's a whole story behind that, and I kind of go into it in my book, and it's a lot of fun. But I started investing in real estate, and that was a good time. And I've done that for the last 28 years, very, very consistently. It was my primary wealth building strategy. It was my focus. And back about 10 years ago, my business partner and I started a new construction business. We do spec homes, single family, affordable, put some air quotes down there, affordable spec homes in Cabarrus and Southern Rowan Wayne counties. And, but then recently I had this kind of vision to take my experience in property management and investing and all that I've done consistently over the last 28 years and kind of offer that up to the marketplace. But not just that, I got really frustrated over the last 30 years because you talk to financial planners, and I'm using air quotes if you can't see me, financial planners who really are just stock sales guys. And that's what they do. I'm in sales. I get it. You have a certain amount of product and that's what you sell, but that's really also all that you know. And so when I would sit in front of a stock sales guy and say, hey, here's my plan, they would look at me like deer in the headlights, right? They had no concept. They're like, well, if you could just, invest in this other, stock of GameStop, right? You could retire and we'll pay you just enough to eat lunch and, and hopefully you won't die before, hopefully you'll die before you run out of money. I'm like, well, that doesn't seem like a real good mix. And then I would show them my real estate portfolio and we don't understand that. I'm like, I know you don't. And so you don't, let's not have this conversation like you're planning my retirement. This over here is really just extra, right? So I thought, well, if I have that kind of background in my analytical background and the property management background, why can't we bring that same philosophy of helping others build wealth through investing in real estate, helping them, giving some coaching, some advisory solutions along the way, right? And really kind of guiding them along that path. Because I had to struggle that path, back in the day when we were younger, right? There was no YouTube. Okay.
Yeah.
There was no YouTube. No. You had to actually break out a book in paper. Mm-hmm. Right. And I read a bunch and you could only go as fast as the pages could turn. Right. There wasn't an Audible that you could put it 2 times and suck it in back then. And so a lot of trial by fire, trial and error. So that's kind of what we're trying to do at Branch Wealth Partners is to connect with real estate investors, maybe even just inspiring investors, maybe those that have a dream or a goal of making real estate their primary wealth building strategy, but just don't really know how. And what does that look like? So could we provide them those advisory solutions and also do their asset management and analysis along the way so that they could be hands off if they want to and let us put our 28 years of experience behind them and kind of support them through that process. So that's kind of where we've been and kind of our vision for Branch. That was a lot there. So just
a lot to unpack. Yeah. I'm still on the, you pointing at me when you were saying when we were younger, there was no YouTube.
Right. Sorry. I'm just looking at the beard. I'm going, you got to be about my age.
Yeah, okay. We are the same age.
I'm distinguished. It's really distinguishment.
That's right. I remember Google being Encyclopedia Britannica.
That's correct.
That's correct.
World Book. Yeah. We could only afford World Book. We couldn't get the Britannica. In my house.
I love the term wealth building strategy, right? And that's really you got into real estate investing. That was your strategy, your plan for building wealth. What kind of, you started investing, 30 years ago? 25 years ago?
28 years ago.
Okay.
In fact, in April was 28 years. So
what did those early properties look like?
They were terrible.
What kind of investments were they? Were they condos, rentals, or
were
you flipping?
No, I wasn't flipping. I was doing the Burr method before it was even a term. And so because it wasn't in one of the books I saw, right? But no, I started by buying some single family and some condos, and they were all trash. They were terrible. It was the only ones I could afford, right? Mm-hmm. And I was using the no money down schemes at the time, right? And, studying Robert Allen and Carlton Sheets and all those guys that were out there back then. And so I would go in, my goal was to buy a property, fix it up, get it rented, right? And get that first rent payment before my mortgage came due that first month. And then we really didn't have a lot of seasoning requirements back then. So I could generally turn it around in 30 days, get reappraised, right? Reappraised for higher, pull all my cash back out. So I'd have basically zero in on it and then go and do it again. Mm-hmm. And so I did that a bunch. And I started out with kind of the condo single family market down there in Florida. And then I stepped up into multifamily pretty quickly. And kind of started on that path, and it left a Dearborn, freight train of disaster behind me with no cash flow, extreme amount of debt, all that kind of stuff pulling behind me, and somehow through God's providence, I was able to keep it all on the rails. And work through that. So now I do things a little smarter now. And
you've learned a little bit.
I learned a little bit, but those are some of the mistakes that I hope to kind of help my mentees avoid. Right? No need to do things and have no cash flow, and that way when the water heater goes out, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm a little short.
Yeah.
And
borrowing from over here to
I bought a condo on a credit card. I mean, and it was like then you're taking this credit card to pay off this credit. I mean, Dave Ramsey's just sitting there with his hands in his pocket like this, shaking his hand, right? And
that's exactly what I was thinking of.
He didn't even have his stuff back then. It was Larry Burkett back then. I could just hear old Larry rolling in his grave, just shaking his head. But so we worked through all that, and now we do things a little bit more strategic and not so like what I call gunslinging days. We're out there just shooting it up.
No,
be real crazy.
Figuring it out as you went.
Yes. Right? Yeah. Oh yeah. By hook or by crook, we got it done.
Christina, I want to bring you in. Share a little bit about your background and your role with Branch Wealth Partners.
Yeah, for sure. So I became an aspiring real estate investor before I actually knew that I was. My first house was down in South Charlotte. It was an estate. It was a mess when I bought it. I kind of, redid the floors, painted, updated it, ended up selling that, made a really good profit. And I was like, I'm going to buy some land. So I bought some land up in the lake, held on to that for like 2 years. And we thought we were going to build a house there, decided not to. So ended up selling that, made a profit. So I was like, all right. So then we were living in a house in Concord. And I was like, I think I want to be a landlord. I think I want to try to figure this out. So I started getting into reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I found Robert Kiyosaki. I honestly don't remember how I found him, but read the book, changed my life.
I found him through a podcast.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember. I was thinking about that this morning. So then started reading all of the creative financing, real estate investing books that I could find. So then we were able to make our last house an investment property, got some tenants in there, bought a new house. So we're living there. And then now I'm actually active under contract on another home in Kannapolis for my mother-in-law. So that's my real estate journey. But And then again, I also was involved in real estate before I even really understood it, because my very first job was for the head of commercial real estate at Wells Fargo. And at that point, I was 24 years old, and I honestly had no idea what she did. Like, my job was to make sure she picked up the phone, was at meetings on time, she was fed, and she her life was good. So I didn't really think about what she actually was doing for work. And then we're still friends to this day. That was like 15 years ago, I guess. I was working for her, and she invited me to come down to her beach house, up to her beach house in Avalon, New Jersey. I knew it was going to be beautiful, but when I got there is when I realized the magnitude of what real estate can do for you, because not only did she work as an executive at a bank, but she also had a huge portfolio with her dad of big multifamily properties, and her husband's in insurance, so he insured everything. And it was just like a perfect little thing. And I was like, wow, she lives across the street from the Utz pretzel family. And I was like, oh my goodness, wow. This is what I'm doing. Yeah. So then I started joining the Real Estate Investor Association meetings in Charlotte, going to those meetings. I got sucked into a lot of sales pitches, and I bought a class on Subject to, and then I bought a course on finding distressed houses and went through that. Started driving for dollars around Concord. As I'm driving around Concord, I'm calling people.
Explain driving for dollars.
Driving around the neighborhoods near me and finding distressed houses. So houses that had overgrown bushes or like boarded up doors or windows or signs on the doors. Obviously, no one's taking care of it, or it's vacant. So then I learned how to look up these houses, find the owner, find their contact information, started calling on people. And I started calling on some people who were like big real estate families in Concord. And I'm like, okay, there has to be a better way to get in touch with these people besides cold calling them and begging them to sell me their house, subject to, or whatever way. I didn't even understand what I was doing at the time. So I had a real estate agent who introduced me to an attorney here in Concord, told her what I was getting into, what I wanted to do. And she was like, oh, you really need to meet Greg Lafferty. And I was like, all right, cool. Awesome. So then I think I had to email her 3 times before she finally connected us. So
she's persistent.
I'm very persistent, which is part of the reason he hired me. So we finally had a meeting, came to the office. We sat down for like 2 hours, and he told me about his history, what he's doing, and his future goals. And I think pretty much word for word, he said something along the lines of, I'm starting this little property management and education business. And I was like, oh, cool. How do I get involved? And we kind of parted ways. And then I heard from him a week later, and he was like, hey, can you come back? I want to talk through some things with you. And I was like, yeah. And I told my husband, I'm like, I think he's going to offer me a job, but I have no idea what he would offer me because I know nothing. So I came in, and he did. And he offered me a job to be investor relations for branch. And he was like, if you can find me and I'm super under the radar, then I am excited to see what you can do for the business. So here I am 8 months later.
Yeah, I was impressed because I don't like to be out here, out here in the public. That's not my thing. I'm just doing my thing, right? Collecting rent, taking care of business, growing my portfolio, and making my investments. And somehow she tracked me down. I'm like, well, if you can find me,
I need someone like that.
I need somebody like that. So she's amazing. So she goes out there and works every day and works with our investors and all those kind of things and builds those relationships up. It's fantastic.
How long have you been working together?
We met in June, and I officially started in December.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. And then, as he said, my subtitle is professional friend finder.
Yeah. So, another good quality.
Another good quality.
Yeah. Excellent quality.
I mean, I have that engineering, analytical side. I'm more of like a meet one person and get a mile deep than meet 500 people. Right. And that's not my thing. So that's her thing.
Well, Christina, I also understand the whole not understanding what that boss did at the time. My wife's been a program manager with Wells Fargo for almost 30 years, and I still don't know what she does. It's still way over my head. So
yeah, all I knew is that the analysts were always there till like 2 or 3 in the morning, and then back at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, I'm glad I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about it. She's actually in Manila right now.
Oh,
yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. Good times.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, and I should probably be a little more accurate. She's with Principal now. She joined Principal 2 years ago. So go Principal. All right. So,
Get your plugs in.
What year did you begin investing, Christina?
I guess officially investing about 2 years ago is when I made my last property, my last residence and income producing property.
Wow.
But I guess if we go back to the land and buying my first house, I bought my first house in 2016.
Okay.
And then I sold it in 2020.
Good time.
Right when COVID started. I sold it, I think it was like April 19th was my close date.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a very stressful situation because we didn't know if the prices were going to plummet or if they were going to skyrocket. So my agent was like, you got to sell because we don't know what's going to happen. And I'm like, okay, let's sell. And then come to find out, I should have waited. But anyway, I was able to buy that land at a pretty good deal. It was in Terrell, across the street from the lake. Mm-hmm. Really nice neighborhood. But then we just kind of decided, like, let's not spend all our money building a $500,000 plus house. And let's use this to make us some income. Mm-hmm. So that's how that started.
Much better play.
I'm
Assets
so
versus
happy.
liabilities. Let's focus.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of Robert Kiyosaki,
or Dave Ramsey.
Or Dave Ramsey. Yeah, exactly. Very similar playbooks, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And both excellent playbooks. Mm-hmm. Not sure where you are on that. You would know a lot more than I would, but I've gleaned a lot of really great advice and information from both of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's talk about, for listeners who aren't familiar with your company, you've evolved your journey in real estate investing into this company now who advises and helps individuals not only get started, I assume, but also helps them build their portfolios, manage their portfolios. Again, 40,000 foot view. Yeah. What kind of programs and what are you offering there?
Sure. Yeah. I even noticed during my journey that I got to a certain level and I just couldn't handle it on my own. Right. You get to a certain point and you're like, man, I'm doing everything in the Michael Gerber E-Myth kind of terms. I was the technician versus the manager versus the entrepreneur. Another great book, changed my life. And so, so I kind of got to the point where I couldn't handle it on my own. So I see it in three distinct steps, right? I see that aspiring investor maybe has one or two, but they really haven't hit their stride yet, and they need a better foundation of education, and their eyes need to be opened up. Just like with Christina, she's driving for dollars for single family homes. I'm like, why are we doing that? Like, why are we not driving for dollars for a larger multifamily or distressed commercial or something else? Like, let's open up our mind to bigger things. And certainly we could make a great impact on our net worth with single family. Not a problem with that, right? Everybody has their own strategy, but let's open up that aspiring investor's eyes to what are the possibilities, and then let them decide their own path, right? So we have a nice little mentorship program that's about 90 days in length, where they come in and they go through this intro level course of, hey, here's why we need to form an LLC, and here's how you finance these properties, here's how you find them, whatever. And then it goes into this rhythm of, and that's kind of a weekly, 90-day, every week kind of meeting, and then we go into this monthly group meeting that rolls those cohorts together, and that's kind of more of that eye-opening. Let's think bigger picture. So last month, and introduce them to my network, which I've developed over 28 years. So last month was my real estate agent, my insurance agent coming in and talking about the value of insurance and what that looks like, why you need it, and liability and how that works. And
it was eye-opening.
It was eye-opening, right? Goodness, even for me, I look at it and go, "Ooh, could we?" I mean, told Christina, "Hey, don't let me forget this when we come to the office tomorrow. We need to pay attention to this."
Very actionable items.
Very actionable. A couple months ago, we had a buddy of mine that's been doing a large-scale multifamily syndication. Right. Well, is that not eye-opening for somebody who's barely even bought their first rental house to go, wait a minute, you mean that if you raise about $5 million from your closest friends, right, we could do this over here, So, we have another long-term buddy of mine coming in a couple months to talk about industrial projects. I mean, he builds hundreds of thousands of square feet a year, right, in industrial and warehouse space. So just to kind of get their minds spinning on different opportunities out there in real estate. It's not just let's go buy a house and fix it up and rent it for $1,200 a month. That's not what we're talking about, right? It's bigger plays too. So that's that kind of intro level and into the intermediate level, right? To help them change their mindset, right? Because those guys could get plugged into the ongoing monthly curriculum, right? To kind of help them take it to the next level, but then also leverage our asset management capabilities when they can't do it on their own anymore. They need to take off that technician tool belt, man. Come on, let's take it off. Let's outsource that guy. Outsource the administration, outsource the maintenance, outsource all that stuff so that then that investor can focus on what's really their skill set, right? Whatever that is, let's identify your particular skill set. You go do that. We'll take care of the rest, right? Here again, leverage our network of finance people, leverage our network of maintenance people, leverage our, right? We build houses for a living too. So, if you don't think I have trades, right? Just line them up. Okay. And that's what we do. So let us take care of those kind of things and let you focus on living life and enjoying that investment and focusing on what you do best. And then the retiring investor, what does that look like? Do they really have to keep struggling with this portfolio into their 80s, or what are we going to do? Right? How do we help them exit out of the portfolio and get the most value for that work? Right? Whether that's, hey, let's just take over the management, or let us reallocate that portfolio to other investors, right? And kind of distribute that back out, or maybe giving them other opportunities to 1031 to do some kind of tax advantage exchange, right? Into something else that's a little bit lower intensity, right?
Yeah.
To help strategize about that. So those are the things we offer along the way. I hope that wasn't too verbose.
No, not at all. Yeah. No, that was very helpful.
How are we doing?
Oh, no, that's great. I also feel like I'm kind of mentee number one of Branch Wealth Partners. I know Greg has said a ton of other mentees, but going through the mentorship program, I have taken all the foundational items and put them to play. And I feel like that's the reason why I am now actively under contract on this property. And I'm super excited to go in and renovate it. And as my mother-in-law lives there, do little projects and make it really nice, because I see the value. I see the appreciation that is going to happen. I'm excited about the tax depreciation that's going to help me on my taxes. I have a great place for my mother-in-law to live. And it's helpful for everybody. And it's great.
One of the things we want to focus on is our impact to other people. And that's very important to me. It's important to some other business partners, is that, I'm part of an organization called C12. It's a Christian Business Leaders Roundtable group. It's an international organization. Everybody should look it up. Just put a plug in there. But very active here in the Charlotte area. And we believe as business is a ministry. And so we want to impact our teammates, impact our subcontractors, impact our tenants as well. And so, we offer this curriculum to all our internal people as well. And so free of charge, they could come and then I help encourage our teammates to leverage what's in front of them. There's no reason that they should not at least think about and consider investing some level, right? Some level, either in real estate or something, but they need to invest for the future. And so, like right now, we're, my business partner is a Dave Ramsey facilitator, right? So that's why, hashtag Dave Ramsey, whatever. Let's go ahead and put the plug in. But we are doing financial peace inside the organization. They're coming on Fridays at lunch and Mondays in the evenings.
I'm going through it.
And we are educating our teammates on how to manage their budget and how to take care of their money. Right? Because if their money's right, then their employment situation is a lot more stable. Their life is stable. Their employment situation is stable. It's just a better impact on them. And so, so we encourage them to do that, and then we encourage them to come. We have some signed up for our next cohort that starts in September,
September 5th,
to join us in the next cohort of training to be able to go through that. I want them to be exposed. Why not? Right? If my goal is, this is my legacy play, right? This is totally I don't have to do this. right?
Yeah.
Now, I could turn a switch off today, and I don't want to go to the beach. We talked about this before. I'm not a beach guy, but if you catch me in the mountains, in Boone and Blowing Rock, I might be there, right? So I could cut this whole thing off and go to the mountains and enjoy my life because I've done all the hard work. I've put in the blood, sweat, and tears and grow my portfolio so I could retire. I've already retired twice. So this is my legacy play. And, that's what I want to give back and help others behind me. As we climb the mountain, we should look back and pull others up.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Right.
I love that. You mentioned mentees when they come into your 90-day program, that one of the first things you do is open their eyes to bigger possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you're helping them overcome the fear of thinking big, right?
Yep. That's exactly right. We have that fear of success or fear of failure,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so, is it easier to walk down a trail that you've never been before with a buddy, right? Or easier to do it all alone, right? Me, it's always much more fun to do it with a friend, right? So, and I've spent many hours and miles on the trail with the Boy Scouts. So I know it's a lot easier when you go into the woods in an unknown trail to be there with a friend.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that's kind of our point. If we can walk down the trail with them together and kind of guide them along the way, then overcome that fear to say, hey, look, we've analyzed it. It seems to work. Let's go do it. Like, why not? I'll even finance it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Now what are we arguing about?
Yeah.
Right?
It's not the money anymore.
It's not the money anymore. Let's take that off the table. So are you ready or what?
Yeah.
And then we really promote the fact that anyone can be a real estate investor. You just have to be in the right mindset. Like that is where it all starts. Like anyone can do it. I don't have a background in real estate. I didn't go to school for real estate. My degree is in psychology and sociology. But if you have that mind shifting moment, or you're like, okay, I want real estate to be my predominant wealth building vehicle, then like you will put in the work to get it done. So we also kind of want to bust those false reality myths that like you can become a millionaire in a year or 6 months, it doesn't really take any time or any work. You can just hire other people to do it, and you can get money from all these other people, which I'm sure you can. I'm sure that works for some people, but in like realistically, it's not how it is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Like, you're not going to show up in your Lamborghini in 90 days. It might take 120.
Right.
But the guys on YouTube just crack me up. I'm like, okay, so he rented the car for the video. Like I got it. Like as long as everybody understands
the private jet.
And the private jet,
that's another one that's pretty common.
You can buy one of those little cards for about $50,000 and fly, at least some hours, and show up and act like it's yours, So, that's one of Grant Cardone's quotes. He goes, "You can't fake a jet, dude."
Yeah.
That's right. It's harder to do it.
Yeah.
You got your initials on the tail. It's a little harder to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That reminds me of most of Rick Hendrick's planes have RH on the tail. Right. The tail number ends in RH, that's right? You can't fake that.
Can't fake that. That's definitely yours. Like putting a brand on it. It's awesome.
Well, the other thing that you brought up that I love that you brought up was the E-Myth. I think that's a book that isn't mentioned enough on this podcast. It's been mentioned a few times by business owners, but this idea of scaling is the thought that kept coming to mind as you were describing helping your mentees delegate and outsource these tasks and parts of the business that are kind of a time suck, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I used to, it was great for my sons. My sons are 20 and 22 now. And when they were young, even in like car seats, we would get out on the weekends, they'd get in the truck and we'd drive around and do a few little maintenance tasks and that kind of stuff. And we'd have snack time and we'd go to lunch. It was a great way to kind of get them out of the house and let their mom kind of have some time off. But I spent weekend after weekend after weekend, right, doing the work. And one thing was a breakthrough moment for me. I was installing a dishwasher. Okay. I was installing a dishwasher, done it tons of times. It's not that hard, right? A couple electrical wires, a little bit of plumbing, you're good to go, right? Like lick your fingers first before you play with the electricity. That's an old engineer joke.
I picked up on that.
Especially when you're laying in water because of the water line. You reach your hand up in there, and that's why I lost all my hair. And so I'm under there, 4 trips to Lowe's later, all that kind of stuff, and still got a drip, and I'm like, this is crazy. And I call my plumber. And a buddy of mine, I'm like, hey, dude, I got this dishwasher. It's driving me crazy. What are you doing? He goes, I'm out here flying my drone, man, with my kids. And I'm like, wait a minute. The plumber's out flying his drone, having a good time. And I am under the dishwasher. It's the dumbest thing ever. What am I? You look yourself in the mirror, you know? I'm like, whoa, you're ugly, but you also are doing stupid stuff too. Okay. So anyway, so that was the last plumbing job I ever did. Okay. Until I bought a plumbing company, and a couple times I had to jump in. But I usually tell people, I'm like, if I'm showing up for a plumbing job, you got the wrong guy. Yeah. It was, and the E-Myth helped me with that. Reading the E-Myth and then going through that experience was the impetus for change. Right. And then I never looked back. Never looked back. I had already delegated the bookkeeping task years before because, you know what, look, everybody can operate QuickBooks. They make it so simple. That's why they do it that way. It's not very complicated. And accounting is accounting. I don't care what industry you're in. I know the accountant's going to stand up and say, wait a minute. But yeah, you know, this really is. So I outsourced that first. But the maintenance stuff, I just couldn't let go of. I mean, I felt like I had to do that. And then when I alleviated myself from that burden with Gerber's help, it's like, man, it's freeing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely freeing. And now, I mean, if I work on the weekends, it's because I just need to get out of the house and I want something else to do, but I don't do any maintenance. I mean, I kind of drive around a little bit and look at some property, drink a lot of coffee, hang out, you know, I'm working.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I didn't read the E-Myth until about 6 or 7 years into my first business. And after reading it, I began the process of closing that business.
Right.
Because I realized I had launched a business that I can't scale.
Right.
And I was never going to be able to separate Jeff from the technician, the technical part of the work. So anyway, yeah, I'll have a link for that book in the show notes.
And that's a conversation we have all the time.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. With Branch, you know, this is not hero worship here, right? We're bringing in other experts to support it. And Christina and I and our team, we have conversations all the time. Like, you know, I am not the only expert on this team. Like we have other experts, other industry specialists that we bring in. And that's the power of what we're doing at Branch. I don't want to be the guy, right? Because I'm over 50. There's a lot of my buddies that didn't wake up, right? In the morning. So every time I wake up, I'm like, this is great. I got a new day. Right. So I need something to be able to survive past my life expectancy. Right. And so that's why we're tapping into our network and bringing other experts on board, right? At least from a industry, a subject matter expert type, you know, facility. Right. And because I don't want to be the guy. And we have administrators on staff, property manager on staff. I mean, all those kind of things to facilitate all that. And so when somebody says, Greg, what do you do during the day? I'm like, I drink my coffee. I test it. Because do you realize that the productivity of your people goes way down if the coffee sucks? I mean, have you ever done a study on that? I mean, so if you really want to make sure your team is like hopping, you best get in early and test the coffee.
That's right.
I mean, it's got to be good. So that's what I do. That's my job.
That's an office I could work at. Yeah. If the coffee's good, that's the litmus test right there.
Awesome.
Christina, did I interrupt you? Were you going to add something?
I was just going to say, Greg tells me all the time, don't be a technician. Like I'll try to take on so much work because that's just how I am. I'm super organized. I like things to be done. I'm wired, and I'll try to take tasks back that I've already delegated. And he's like, no, you've already delegated it. Just stop being a technician. You need to do some other stuff. You need to do your 80%.
80-20.
And then delegate your 20.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's right. Pareto's principle.
Yeah. Yeah. The CEO or the entrepreneur has more important things to do than there's a job the CEO and the entrepreneur has that doesn't involve the technical day-to-day minutia. I read, no, I'm not going to go on a tangent. I said I was going to do that.
Take us there, baby. Take us. Let's go.
Well, I just want to mention the Everything Store. The Everything Store. I'll bring it up. The Everything Store, which is the biography of Jeff Bezos. Not written by Jeff Bezos, but authorized biography. And he talks about how, obviously, he was on his hands and knees in the garage in the early days, putting books in boxes with, software developers and MIT grads and, but later in his career, as CEO of Amazon, he's taking one meeting a day, and he's like, I have, and he's only making 2 or 3 decisions a day. And that's it. That's what you have your team for, right?
That's right.
And another, something else that Rick Hendrick apparently is known to say is that if it gets to me, it's free.
Interesting.
In other words, the CEO doesn't have time for if by the time it gets to me, it's going to be free.
Right.
So
don't let it get to me.
Yeah. So don't let it get to me.
Because I'm going to make this decision real fast.
There's a very busy guy that makes sure that nothing gets to him, I'm sure. So anyway, I digressed as usual. What does it look like just take me through what it looks like when a mentee joins your program? What are the steps? How do they get started?
Sure. You want to take that, Christina?
Yeah, for sure.
It's kind of more your lane. I'm delegating. Did you watch this? See how that happened?
Yeah, look at that. Put me on the spot there.
Yeah, put you on the spot. That and our other teammates.
Yeah. So typically how I come across people every day. So I'll invite them to our monthly classes, or I'll invite them to some kind of events, kind of get them really engaged in what we do. And then they see themselves like, oh my gosh, this is exactly where I want to be. Because Greg is so charismatic that he just pulls people in.
Thanks for radio.
Yeah. What's that?
Face for radio.
Face for radio. So then they come in, and like you said, it's a 90-day program where we meet once a week, usually on Thursday nights. We bring in dinner. And literally day 1 of the class is getting your mindset right, talking about your goals, looking at your personal finances, and establishing your why. And then we kind of go from there. And if they decide that this is something they want to move forward on, then they move forward. And we have then an additional 9 classes after that, where, as you mentioned before, the next class is talking about setting up your business and the accounting aspect. And then we have investor-friendly lenders come in and talk about the financing. And then we talk about how they want to invest in real estate, how active or passive they want to be, how much time versus money that they have. And then we'll go into some sample deal analysis. We may even go on a field trip and look at a property, look at a new construction, look at a flip, so they can get some hands-on experience. Evaluate the property so they can see, windows are going to be this much and doors are going to be this much. And if a brick looks like this, then it may have some structural issues, and kind of go into depth there. And then we talk about marketing, how you find the properties. And then we go into networking. And then that's when we start going into the one-on-one accountability call. So then we start taking deeper dives with them, and over the phone, really dig into their goals. If they have any projects on the horizon or deals on the horizon, we will help them underwrite those, and then possibly help them finance them. And then we throw some fun stuff in there too. Like we'll have a Christmas party that they'll come to. We're taking our mentees to the Cannonballers game in a couple of weeks as an appreciation. Thank you. And then we just keep connecting with them at least once a month, probably twice a month, with the accountability calls, and then the monthly deeper dive meetings that we have. And like Greg said, we talked about multifamily syndications, 1031 exchange, short-term rentals, which was a really mind-blowing one.
Very interesting.
So
very mind-opening.
So that's kind of how it looks. And me kind of as like mentee number 1, like I said before, I have taken all of these tools and applied them. So that's our expectation for our mentees too. Like you're going to go through this course, and in about 4 months, you should feel comfortable enough to go out there and start looking for deals. And then as they have questions, they reach out to us. So it's very, very full service, very hands-on, and we genuinely care about them and want to help them. I know our education director, Leanne, will take random phone calls or texts while she's in the middle of something, and someone will be like, is this door okay? Do you think this will look good? Or like, so they have access to us. And like I said, we're here to help.
The nice thing is we're not looking for a huge following. That's not what we're trying to do, right? We're looking for select individuals that want to make a difference in their lives, right? And so, I don't need 1,000 mentees. Right? That would probably drive me crazy. Okay. But I want the people that say, hey, look, this is something I really want to do. Right. This is how I want to grow the wealth for my family. This is what I really feel like I'm passionate about, and I'm actually going to take action on it, not, just take a class and, whatever. No, we want action people.
Yeah.
We want action people. And, we've had people before that says, well, I love to do this, but if I do that, that's going to really take away my money that I save for my going to the club with the girls on Friday night. And I'm like, going to the club? What are we going to do here? Like, if you just do this for a few years, you buy the club. Like, I don't understand. Open up your own club.
Yeah. And in our first few classes, we give them homework and we're like, okay, you need to fill out your personal financial statement. You need to establish a budget. And then when we get into the business formation, like, okay, here are some attorneys that we know and love. Reach out to them and get your LLC started if that's the way you want to go. Or if you are going to establish a partnership. Yeah. Take the first steps and just as you're in class, you can start doing actionable things. So by the time you're done, you can be like, all right.
Yeah. And also kind of placing a foundation with those basic life skills too, like budgeting and taking stock of where you're at in the beginning, right?
That's correct.
What about, Christina, you mentioned time versus money. Someone may have more time than money. And of course, my ears perked up when you said that because I can relate. What ratio would you say of your mentees have? It's easy for me to imagine how someone with wealth, with more money than time, would invest in anything. But how does one who is just starting out? Is it pretty common that your mentees come into the game with more time than money?
I would say it's about half and half.
Half and half.
Yeah. And then for those kind of people, we say then a flip would be great for you because quick win, you can be hands-on, you can learn how to do all these things. And then like wholesaling would be another thing. You kind of have the time to go out, look at properties.
And if they have more money than time, then being a private money lender for the other mentees could be an option, or be a private money lender to New Life Developers, which is our construction company, because we're looking to finance new construction homes as well. So that gives them a return on that money, and they're investing in real estate, right? By the strictest definition of the term. But yet they don't have to apply any time, right? They don't have to apply any time. So they can partner with other mentees and either using their personal cash or their self-directed IRA or some other vehicle to help facilitate that transaction. It's a great partnership there. So either way, them working together, that's fun too to watch.
Yeah. Someone's looking for a down payment and they need $50,000, and another mentee in the class is like, oh, well, I have that. I'll loan that to you with some interest, some friends coming back with that. Right. And they just they just build a little partnership and they just keep rolling. They both are winning.
Yeah. Greg, you mentioned also you're not looking for a huge group of mentees. You're looking for select individuals, folks who are right for the program. I'm guessing commitment and patience would be two qualities that you're looking for.
And that personal drive, which is part of commitment, right? And the willingness to learn, to be a sponge, but then not just to learn, but then to the desire to apply the knowledge, right? To actually take those steps.
And getting back to that one statement about primary wealth building strategy. And one of the many hats that I wear is marketing professional. And I often, preach to my clients, look, there are 1,000 ways you can market your business.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. They all work.
Right.
But what doesn't work is doing a little bit of this for 2 months, and that doesn't work. So try this for 2 months.
Right.
Right. See where I'm getting at.
That's right.
And I feel like real estate, I feel like all good investments are really a long play for the most part, right?
Long play. They're a long play. You lose if you sell, right? In most investments, you lose if you sell, right? So hang in for the long term. My uncle always had an expression when I was kind of beginning. He would say, "Time is on your side." And as I get older, I understand that, right? The longer you hold the property, the longer you're in the game, the longer your horizon is with life. And that's really part of the mindset thing. What is your horizon with life? Is it 2 years, or are you looking for the long term? Are you looking 30, 40 years out? Because your decision ability, your ability to make solid decisions is related to your horizon perspective, right? Because if you're looking to next week, then you're liable to make bad decisions, right?
Yeah.
So like if you're trying to figure out how to eat today, you might end up in prison tonight. Right? Because you're going to make some real bad decisions to go rob the convenience store to get some money to go, right? So, but if you're looking at a very long horizon out there in your life and say, okay, I'm going to make all my decisions based on how that long-term impact is going to play out, then your decisions might be a good bit different, right? I might not just sell a house just because somebody told me, oh, you should sell, you're going to lose money. Well, what if I just stay here? I bet you long term, the market's going to rebound, right? And if we had all sold in 2011, right, we would have missed the appreciation in 2020. Right. So just hang on and look at a longer horizon. And so I think that's all part of mindset. And yeah, so hopefully that didn't ramble too bad. Sorry.
Not at all.
Sorry.
Not at all.
I'm over 50. I just lost my closer on that one.
You're talking to the rambler, so don't worry about it. That reminded me also, speaking of rambling, that reminded me of another author. And Stephen Covey says that one of the 7 habits is beginning with the end in mind.
Beginning with the end in mind.
And
exactly right.
So have that goal. And then it's about building the process or the systems to get there, right? Following the systems to get there.
That's correct. And so once someone picks their strategy, right? Once someone picks their strategy with a long horizon out there in front of them, just ride it. Just ride it. Work the process every day, right? Don't jump from one thing to another. You know, the GameStop guys, I mean, that was great. High five to them if they made a little bit of money. That's awesome. We could compare balance sheets. It's good. Okay. So, but just ride it out. Even some of the real estate strategies that are out there today with the syndicators where they're putting money together, their goal is to exit in 5 to 7 years, right? And this is something that's really hit me recently. You know, their goal is to get a liquidation of some kind of equity event, right, in 5 to 7 years. So they intend to refinance and pay their investors back. I'm like, you know, you really don't take advantage of the natural amortization of the mortgage. You know, a 20-year loan, man, about year 15, you are picking up speed. That hill is falling fast. And so your growth in wealth is huge after about year 12 to 15, right? Yeah. But all you're paying is interest in the first 5 years. Right? That first 5 years on a 20-year loan, you're just paying interest. So you're really not gaining a huge amount of wealth through that strategy, right? Now they might high five themselves, you know, when they sell it for more than they paid for it and all that kind of stuff, think like they did a great job. But if they would have a long horizon on that investment, their return would be a lot better. But you know, hey, look, I'm just a little redneck from Concord. I don't know. I didn't go to Harvard. Somebody else figured that out on Wall Street, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess. You know, of course, they're the same ones that got us into the dot-com bust and the 2000, 08,
07, 08. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, they've 87 crash. I mean, all those people, you know, had Black Tuesday, Black Monday, Black whatever. I mean, you know, pick a few. Those smart people got us into that. Me, I'm just plugging right along. Consistency. All that stuff happens without me. Y'all could have all that. I'm just going to plug right along below the radar until Christina finds me.
Bringing you out of your shell.
Bringing me out of my shell.
I'm best at LKN now. Look at you.
Right.
Look at me.
That's right. You made it.
I made it.
Guys, this has been amazing. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast. I appreciate your time so much. Before we close, can you share a tip for anyone who's listening? And Christina, I'll leave this open to you as well. Either one of you. Somebody's listening. How do they get started? Or what? Maybe they're afraid to get started. What are some tips you might have for them?
Well, you know, in my team breakfast this morning, every Thursday, we get the team together. And there was actually a quote from the Walt Disney Company. I'm going to paraphrase because I'm real bad at remembering everything. But it was basically like, in order to get started at something, stop talking and get started.
Yes.
Right. That's a Gregism paraphrase. But I think the real thing is just do something. Like you can waste a lot of time doing nothing and you're not going to get anywhere. So, you know, the successful people have learned from their mistakes, but in order to make the mistakes, you have to do something. Right. And so, you know, so just do something. So,
yeah. Right. And I'm going to piggyback on that and have goals and write those goals down. and look at those goals every day and make small actionable steps towards those goals. So then it's about taking action. Like you just don't want to write them down and put them in a drawer. And then it's like, oh, they didn't happen.
Absolutely.
You have to write them down, create SMART goals, and then work the steps, and anything is possible. I am a true believer that you can make anything happen.
And Jeff, I want to iterate one thing that we didn't really touch on is one of the missions around Branch is to help people create extraordinary lives. If we want to be ordinary, we would spend 30% more than we make, right? We'd live for the moment. We die broke, right? That's the ordinary, right? You know, the average retiree right before they retire is part of the average household earnings statistic, and they earn $55,000, $60,000 a year. But then when they become a retiree, they have $150,000 in retirement savings. Like that's 3 years. Like, what are we doing, right? So something's not working. So you could continue to run that path and do what everybody else does and be ordinary, or you could be extraordinary, extraordinary. And you could have a strategy for yourself. You can think for yourself. You can make decisions for yourself, or you can run off and be like the sheep and just run like everybody else in the herd, or you could be like the wolf over here, right? And run with a smaller group. And so that's, that's kind of the vision, but you have a choice. You have a choice. And I would just encourage listeners to choose to be extraordinary, choose to be different, choose the different path. Right. There's a quote out there that says something like, the greatest views are along the more difficult path. Right. And that's very, very true. Spend as much time in the woods as I have. If you take that odd path out there, you're going to find the best views. You could be on the Blue Ridge Parkway and pick up a few, but that's not the same.
I love a good quote. I'm going to have all our quotes in the description for this episode.
I have one more.
Yeah,
one
go
more
ahead.
Good one along those lines. Dave Ramsey says something along the lines of work like no one else now so you can live like no one else later.
Yeah.
And I really have taken that to heart. And because I am a worker, you can ask my husband, he's like, you work all the time. And I'm like, I know, I'm working now I'm making life hard now so that it's easy later.
Choose your hard.
I'm choosing my hard. I don't really, I went on a ton of vacations and I spent money like I shouldn't have. And now I'm like, okay, I need to really put my head down and work so that later I won't have to work. I always will work, but I won't have to work and we can do all the fun things and not have to worry about it.
She's a repentant spender.
I am. Yes.
No shame.
No shame.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Another author comes to mind, James Clear. You were talking about, getting the little things done every day, knowing your goals, keep them in front of you and follow the systems. And James Clear, those atomic habits, right?
Atomic Habits. Yeah. Great book.
Guys, again, this has been amazing. Christina, how can listeners learn more about Branch Wealth Partners?
You can go to branchwealthpartners.com. My phone number's on there, so you can reach out to me. I think my email address is on there too.
There's a contact form out there.
Yeah, there's a contact form out there you can fill out. I most likely will be the person that we'll see it first. So, and I'm a very quick responder. So if you send a message, I will get back to you.
And Jeff, I had one little gift I want to give to you. This is the official draft copy of an excerpt of a book that we're going to publish this year. And so it's called, the working title is Rentertainment, Tales of a Landlord. This is the funny junk over 28 years. So I want to share that with you there.
I love it. Thank you.
And so maybe the listeners will see that being launched at some point.
Very cool. So, that should be in the camera, I think. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Greg, thank you. Appreciate that. This has been amazing. Listeners, be sure to check out the description, the show notes for this episode for all the links and most of the quotes that we came up with. And hopefully Rick Hendrick isn't going to get a bunch of phone calls for free cars after this. Guys, thanks again so much. Greg Lafferty is the founder of Branch Wealth Partners. Greg, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
And Christina Wright, also with Branch Wealth Partners. Christina, thanks so much. And I just remembered,
shout out.
Yes, I need to give a shout out to Jason Adams, the owner of ISI Cornelius, gym that I'm a member at, and he recommended us to meet. So shout out to Jason. I'll have a link, of course, to ISI in the show notes too.
Awesome. Yeah. And someone else told me to reach out to Jason, which has led me to you. So it has been a path.
Professional friend finder.
Yes.
Professional friend finder. That's right.
Thanks again, guys.
Thank
Norman,
you.
thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next episode.